Hey. Hello.
Good morning. All right. Good enough. How is everybody today?
Good.
Fine.
Susan had some kind of appointment today, so she's not with us.
Okay. Let's All right. So we are on Proverbs 28. And so before we dig in, let's begin with prayer. Gracious and holy God, send your spirit upon us as we learn more about your holy word. We ask that you bless this time. May we learn, may we grow, may we carry this wisdom into the world in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
So chapter 28 is the last of two of the Pisgah Proverbs. Let's see, let me make sure I'm getting that right. Where is it? Where it switched off, I can't find it. But and so this one, whereas the ones before it were divided into a lot of subsections, this chapter is really only divided into two. And so we'll be looking at basically two big chunks of the chapter at a time, because there's two themes that go on in this one. And the first one has to do with poor, and the second has to do with consequences of wickedness and righteousness. And so as we dig in here, of course, there are things once again that we will hear that we have heard many times before, which is indeed, while rare sort of in scripture, not so rare in Proverbs and not rare in teaching itself. The more times we hear stuff, the more times it gets nailed into our heads. And so over and over and over again, we hear these we hear these things. The more we hear them, the more we'll understand them. So let's get started. Okay.
Well, no, you can't walk on the. You can't walk.
So that's the noise we're hearing.
Yes, and now I've lost you. I've got to find you again. Okay. Where were you?
All right. This is chapter 28, verses 1 to 12. Responsibility of kings and people to the poor. The wicked flee when no one pursues, but the righteous are as bold as a lion. When a land rebels, it has many rulers, but with an intelligent ruler, there is lasting order.
No.
A ruler who oppresses the poor is a beating rain that leaves no food. Those who forsake the law praise the wicked, but those who keep the law struggle against them. The evil do not understand justice, but those who seek the Lord understand it completely. Better to be poor and walk in integrity than to be crooked in one's ways, even though rich. Those who keep the law are wise children, but companions of gluttons shame their parents. One who augments wealth by exorbitant interest gathers it for another who is kind to the poor. When one will not listen to the law, even one's prayers are an abomination. Those who mislead the upright into evil ways will fall into pits of their own making, but the blameless will have a godly inheritance. The rich is wise in self-esteem, but an intelligent poor person sees through the pose. When the righteous triumph, there is great glory, but when the wicked prevail, people go into hiding. So read through that, and then we will discuss it.
Stephen, oh, there I am back again.
Perfect timing.
My help is creating difficulties.
Yeah, cats tend to go exactly where you don't want them.
Well, and that is what Tux is doing this morning. He likes the idea of listening to the people talk and seeing them. Come over here. Come down here. Yeah, come down here.
So who needs to change their smoke detector battery?
Oh, that's me. I'm waiting for David because my ceiling is about 15.
Yes, please wait for someone else.
Yeah, it's about 15 feet high, and I've decided, well, long heating and air is coming Thursday. So if David doesn't get here before then, I'll talk him into doing it for me.
Well, you have greater nerves than I do. I don't know that I could handle that for 2 days.
Well, I really, if I close that door, I don't hear it. Now, my alarm system reminds me, and that's what you're probably hearing, and not the battery thing. And all I do is go over and say, yes, I know, thank you. And it'll quit. Maybe I better go tell it to quit.
No, it's fine. I was just concerned that,
Yeah.
I just don't. And the worst is tracking down which one's beeping.
Well, I know which one is beeping.
I think they should flash.
That would yes, that would be helpful.
Beep and flash. That way, because I know that I'm always like standing out in the hallway trying to track the sound, where it's coming from. And
Yeah.
Because now you got them in every room.
Yes.
But yeah, those are
Yeah.
always a joy.
Yeah, and I was out of town for a few days, so I'm sure my alarm system didn't appreciate it because nobody told it was okay. So it just kept doing it all the time.
Well, all right. So what jumps out at you in those 12 verses or confuses you or makes you want to talk?
I like number 11.
Oh, wrong one. The rich is wise in self-esteem, but the intelligent poor person sees through the pose. And in the NIV, I believe it says wise in their own eyes.
Yes, it does.
Yes.
So what does it say to you?
It says to me that the rich are not necessarily going to seek anybody's advice or follow anybody's advice because they think they know it all.
And the second part of the verse, but the poor man who has discernment sees through him. So, you're wise in your own eyes, but not in anybody else's.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and while we're talking about wealth, but to me, that's the difference between wisdom and education.
Right.
You have wise people who may not be the most educated people, but they can see through. I mean, they see through that kind of stuff. So what else?
Number 8 is kind of confusing to me. He who increases his wealth by exorbitant interest amasses it for another who will be kind to the poor. We don't know that other yet it's going to be kind to the poor.
Well,
what does that mean exactly?
Well, that means you get your comeuppance. But basically, Israelites were not allowed to charge interest to the destitute, which is the exact opposite of what happens in our culture, where the poor pay interest out the nose.
Right.
Like these checks for cash places.
Yeah.
And these title loan places that have huge interest rates because people need money and they need it now. And so pretty much if you do that, what goes around comes around, and I think that's to say that God will give that money to somebody who will do right with it.
But it may not be in our lifetime.
Maybe not, but I think that's about divine justice. Somebody will, who deserves it, will get it. Because remember, they were very much about deserving. Although it is interesting how in Proverbs, the poor are not looked upon as sinful or punished for being poor. And in fact, here it's, it talks about the discerning poor.
Mm-hmm.
What else? If we don't talk, this is going to be a very short Bible lesson.
Well, 9 is one that we all should listen to. Or if anyone turns a deaf ear to the law, even his prayers are detestable.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's sort of like if you don't care enough to do what God wants from you,
Don't bother to pray.
yeah. Don't come to me wanting a handout if you ain't going to do your chores.
Right.
Have you told your daughters that?
Yeah, but it doesn't work. They do them eventually. Well, Mary Margaret does. Rachel is not at home. She's too busy flying back.
What
On
time
a side note, for those of you who don't know, Rachel's in Turks and Caicos right now, flying home today. Her boyfriend's sister got married in a destination wedding over the weekend, and Rachel has been saving up for this for 2 years to go. And today she took a picture out of her window with a golf cart with all kinds of like, it looks like takeout boxes on a golf cart. And she goes, those are the COVID meals. Those are all the people that tested positive and can't leave.
Oh,
None of the people that they know tested positive though. So that's good. But yeah.
that is good.
Hmm.
So what else do you hear? I just like the wording of a ruler who oppresses the poor is a beating rain that leaves no food.
Mhm.
You know, when it's harvest time and one of the horrible rainstorms roll in that just rakes that basically kills the harvest. And a ruler who does that just doesn't do anything. It don't oppress the poor. So in this talking about oppressing the poor, what does it say to us? I mean, I doubt many of us see ourselves as wealthy, but in comparison to many,
Mhm.
we are.
Well, I think that says that we should do something to help the poor. Here in Greensboro, they have what's called simple gestures. And we have green bags that we fill with food once a quarter to give to the different shelters and places that provide food. And there are just a lot of things that people can do that can provide food or something for the poor in our community.
Who picks it up?
Volunteers. I got an email and a text message yesterday saying that my simple gestures bags would be picked up on Saturday.
So you sign up for simple gestures, so they know where to go.
That's right. That's right. And then, of course, we give to Greensboro Urban Ministries, which is and bake casseroles for the homeless to eat on the third Thursday in the month. And, you know, as your church does, I'm sure there are lots of opportunities to do something for the poor in the community. You just have to take advantage of it.
That's true. And of course, here we have Mission Lexington.
Mhm.
And we have a lot of folks here that volunteer and do things like that. That simple gestures is a good idea.
It goes to, I think, about 3 different groups. One is backpacks. Shoot. Excuse me. We just jumped at the curtain and fell. Sorry.
Hey, gives you something. It gives you a source of entertainment.
Yes.
So anything else in these verses? All right, well, let's move on to the last one then. Verses 13 to 28, fates of the wicked and righteous. No one who conceals transgressions will prosper, but one who confesses and forsakes them will obtain mercy. Happy is the one who is never without fear, but one who is hard-hearted will fall into calamity. Like a roaring lion or a charging bear is a wicked ruler over a poor people. A ruler who lacks understanding is a cruel oppressor, but one who hates unjust gain will enjoy a long life. If someone is burdened with the blood of another, let that killer be a fugitive until death. Let no one offer assistance. One who walks in integrity will be safe, but whoever follows crooked ways will fall into the pit. If anyone who tills the land will have plenty of bread, but one who follows worthless pursuits will have plenty of poverty. The faithful will abound with blessings, but one who is in a hurry to be rich will not go unpunished. To show partiality is not good, yet for a piece of bread a person may do wrong. The miser is in a hurry to get rich and does not know that loss is sure to come. Whoever rebukes a person will afterward find more favor than the one who flatters with the tongue. Anyone who robs father and mother and says, "That is no crime," is a partner to a thug. The greedy person stirs up strife, but whoever trusts in the Lord will be enriched. Those who trust in their own wits are fools, but those who walk in the wisdom come through safely. Whoever gives to the poor will lack nothing, but one who turns a blind eye will get many a curse. When the wicked prevail, people go into hiding, but when they perish, the righteous increase. So read through that one again, and then we'll talk about it. All right, anyone?
Well, verse 17, the first thing that popped into my mind was Mother Emanuel in Charleston. As those folks immediately supported Dylan Roof and forgave him. But maybe tormented by that guilt is the key there. I don't know.
I don't know. That one kind of to me says somebody kills somebody, don't help them.
Well, yeah, that's what it says, but what I'm saying is they forgave him. And
Yeah.
they know he killed him. But maybe he's not tormented by that. Maybe that's the key phrase of that thing. I don't know.
Well, that sounds, yeah, I mean, well, I think some of that might go back to the first verse about the wicked flee when no one pursues. That's the burden. You kill somebody, you're always looking over your shoulder for the authorities. What else do we hear?
Well, verse 27 just reinforces what we were talking about earlier. I mean, just a few minutes ago, I was trying to find the companion verse we were talking about because the verse we read, then we said, oh, it's really saying we should take care of the poor. And verse 27 says it plainly, you know,
Mhm.
who
Yeah.
gives to the poor will lack nothing. But he who closes his eyes to them receives many curses.
Yeah. And I guess in that culture, everybody knew who was poor. You know,
Mhm.
That's like as a teacher, until we wore uniforms in the middle school, you could look around the classroom and pick out the children basically who came from poverty because of their clothing. And I will never forget when we went to uniforms and we got ready to do a field trip. It was hard to know which child needed financial aid because they were all dressed alike. And before we'd been able to pretty much pick out who it was.
so I guess that's the upside and the downside of school uniforms all rolled into one.
Yep.
Would have been a whole lot cheaper for the parents. So
Yep.
if there's no such thing as style.
That's right. I like number 24, or I think it's interesting. Who robs their father or mother and says it's not wrong is partner to one who destroys.
Partner to a thug is how it says in the RSV.
Okay. I was reading.
Well, no, I mean, but you're right. But
Yeah.
yeah, partner to a thug. I just like that.
I do too. But something's wrong with a person who thinks it's okay to rob their parents.
Well, typically they're in this day and time, a lot of times that's drugs.
Well, that's true.
Which makes you think perhaps the thug there are the drugs.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's interesting. Those who trust their own wits are fools, but those who walk in wisdom come through safely. So wisdom is a communal thing there. Whereas it's learning from others and not just what you think is best, what you think is right. It's the collective wisdom. And I would think probably biblical wisdom would be involved in that as well. But just sort of going off on your own, it doesn't work. What else do we see in that? Number 21 confused me. To show partiality is not good, yet for a piece of bread, people may do wrong. Anybody have a clue what that means?
Well, in the Lutheran Study Bible, it says, an enduring justice problem. Uphold the law, but consider extenuating circumstances. That still does not make sense.
Actually, my commentary says something very different than that. It talks about judges, basically tells them not to show partiality, and yet some judges will take basically risk everything for nothing. A little bribe.
Yeah.
It's more about bribery and it's sort of an ironic statement, which that doesn't make tons of sense either, but I think that it makes more sense than what the Lutheran Study Bible says on that.
Yeah. Well, and another way to look at it is if you show partiality to a child, that can really cause problems.
True. I wouldn't know. I never got shown any partiality by anyone. Not that I deserved it, but
I didn't show you your brother partiality either. But
no. And I was not really referring to my parents.
Okay.
That was pretty even. But in school, I was never granted partiality.
No. Bill's grandmother showed great partiality to Bill, to the detriment of his siblings.
Was he really promised their house?
I don't know that. I doubt it because I didn't hear that until he was in the throes of dementia. So I would say no. And Connie had never heard it.
Well, that's good because he thought that house was my house and he wanted to take it. So yeah, when my parents were visiting a year or so ago, my grandparents owned a service station. Well, not my great grandparents owned a service station that he decided had been promised to him. And my house was that service station that somehow Stacy and I now owned. So the only way to get him to stop talking about this is I said, yeah, don't you remember you gave it to me? Because you already have a house. Oh, yeah. But before, he was quite upset that we had taken this service station and then devoted our lives to running this service station, which would be very ironic since I don't know anything about cars. But we'd be making a ton of money on gas right now.
Yeah.
If by no other reason, just filling my tank up for free. So anything else in these verses that needs focus?
These verses pretty much said a lot, this chapter said a lot of things that we had already talked about.
Well, I think I'm wondering now, it will switch in chapter 30, I'm thinking. Because it switches to a different author, the last two chapters, 30 and 31. But it seems to me that the last chapters up till now, and I'm assuming 29, I haven't read through it yet, it's probably a lot the same again, is the review before the exam. They're sort of pounding home things that have been said quite a few times, and which it's good for us to be reminded of as well, but there's not much to talk about because we've already talked about it.
Yeah.
But that reminds me, we will not meet next week because I will be at Senate Assembly.
Okay.
Or coming home from Senate Assembly probably by now. We don't.
What days are your Senate Assembly days?
Sunday, Monday, Tuesday.
That's interesting.
They rotate them. I mean, and some of it has to do with the hotel. We're in Charleston now,
Okay.
which, we probably ought to share that with the rest of the Senate, with the rest of the ELCA. Hey, everyone in your big cities, we're going to Charleston, South Carolina for our Senate Assembly. Some of these places they don't get to do things like that, but we do. And especially since there's literally nothing to talk about this time. All of the mess in the ELCA has been handled and not much else. Not that South Carolina would have discussed anything contentious anyway. We don't generally do that. Ever since 2009 stuff got hammered out, South Carolina just does not. I mean, we rarely even vote on. We almost never even have resolutions anymore.
Well, North Carolina has gone from every other year, I think it's a Senate education event.
Yeah, it's one day.
Yeah, and that's what they just had.
Yeah, which is what we should probably do too. But our current bishop loves Senate Assembly. And I mean, they literally have gone about trying to find ways to fill time. Oh, we're going to go and do service activities and this and that. And it's like, going to Charleston is not inexpensive for congregations.
Mm-mm.
And it's fun. And I don't feel as bad seeing as how we haven't done it in 2 years. When Senate Assembly basically has been virtually free for the last two, it's not that big of a deal. And being in Lexington, we're also fortunate because, some places have to pay more often. And it's in Columbia every other year, and we don't have to pay for housing then. Because, hopefully our folks can just commute. But yeah, it's we're just happy to be able to be together again And Jenny's not going to miss it because it's her first time in person since she's been elected bishop. And
How
she
many-
loves Synod Assembly.
Are you being facetious or
No,
does
she loves Synod. She was the planner of Synod Assembly when she was the assistant to the bishop. And she loves it, which is great. I mean, you know, I'd rather her love Synod Assembly than a lot of other things. And we live in a synod that one of the strengths is our collegiality with one another because it's small geographically. And so getting everybody together is fun. I mean, and Hugh and Margaret have been to enough. They even know people when they go to Synod assemblies. I mean, it's you reconnect with people and it really is a good time. But so we won't be meeting together next week. So while I do that, but we will be back in 2 weeks.
and I won't be there in 2 weeks because I've got a quilt class.
Well, I'm sure with chapter 29, we'll just be repeating things that we've already been talking about.
Okay. But I'll
All
miss you.
right. All right, folks. Well, that's all we got for today.
Thank
Y'all
you.
it's good to see your
Bye.
arm, Steve. Y'all take care. Bye-bye.